If you think there is a lot of wealth inequality now, watch what happens in the next decade. There's never been a more important time in human history to be an investor. Artificial intelligence will force people to confront what being a human is. AI could substitute up to 25% of current work in the USA, 24% in Europe, and 50% of all work by 2045. This is not the Industrial Revolution 2.0. This is the end of the jobs market. So how do you prepare for it? November 30th, 2022 will probably be remembered as the date humanity changed forever. For years, scientists have been working on artificial intelligence, but on that date, the application known as ChatGPT was opened to the public. For the first time, all of us could interact and use AI in our daily lives. It was no longer something confined to the labs of Google or Microsoft. That was the day artificial intelligence was unleashed on society. Unless you've been living under a rock, which I'm not sure how is physically possible for a human being, but anyways, then you have already heard at least something about AI. Whether you think it will take over the world, replace your job, or is the best thing that has happened to humanity, I need you to watch this video, because it is probably one of the most important videos I will ever make. Today, I will explain my thoughts on how AI will impact the job market, what does it mean for the economy, and how you can prepare for what comes next. I will start with a brief description of AI and its capabilities. Then, I will tell you about the two possible outcomes for our economy. After that, we will explore why all the experts telling you artificial intelligence is simply another technological revolution like the Industrial Revolution are completely wrong. Here I will explain why I think for the first time in our history, this technological revolution will not create more jobs than it destroys. Afterwards, we will see what that means for society and who are the winners and the losers. And finally, I will give you my recipe about how to prepare for a world where most people have no jobs and how you can benefit from that transition instead of getting destroyed by it. My name is Ognan and I welcome you to the Dividend Method channel, where I talk about investing, personal finance, creating passive income, and I help people achieve or at least get close to financial freedom. Artificial intelligence will change everything in our society. However, to keep things within the scope of the channel, in this video I will only talk about the impact of AI on the economy, jobs, investing, and what you can do to benefit instead of getting crushed by it. I have a lot of thoughts about how AI will reshape our society, healthcare, lifespan, our relationships, the political structure, and potentially even end democracy and capitalism as we know it. But I will leave that to other channels or perhaps for future videos. Today, there will be no talk of killing robots, Matrix-style enslavement of humanity, and other scenarios that look great in a movie but are actually not likely to happen. Today, we talk about AI, jobs, investing, money, and how you can make more instead of less of it. First, let's briefly talk about how did we get here. In the 1950s, the modern research of artificial intelligence began. Early on, there was a lot of focus on developing the so-called symbolic AI systems that could reason and solve problems like humans do. However, these systems were often very limited and largely unsuccessful. Now, bear with me here because this is extremely important and I will circle back to it when I discuss how AI will take over most of our jobs and why humans are not as unique as you think. In the 1980s, there was a shift to machine learning, which is a type of technique that allows computers to learn from data without being explicitly programmed. Machine learning systems have been much more successful than symbolic AI systems at solving problems like speech and image recognition and creation. In recent years, there has been a rapid acceleration in the development of AI, driven by the availability of large amounts of data and powerful computational resources. This has led to the development of AI systems that can perform tasks that were once thought to be only able to be done by humans, such as playing chess at a world-class level and writing creative text formats and even music. So, this is how we have come to the place we are at now. After the autumn of 2022, there has been an explosion of AI applications that became accessible to the everyday person. If you have not played with them, or if you are skeptical of their use cases, I will give you only a few examples that will change your mind. First, what do you think is the common thing between this person, and this person, Well, the common thing is that all three of them don't exist. That's right, they have been created by AI on the website thispersondoesnotexist.com. Can you tell that they are not real people? I certainly can't. Okay, another example. There has been a creativity test that I heard Jordan Peterson talk about. Basically, the idea is to ask someone how many practical uses of a random object they can think of. So I decided to ask Google's AI chatbot, Bart, about the uses of a brick. It came up with 28 uses, and it did it in about 3 seconds. I asked it to give me 50 use cases of a wooden plank. That was the result, and it took 6 seconds to come up with all of those use cases. I can literally sit here for an hour and give you example after example, but I think you already get the idea. Okay, Ognjan, random people's faces and use cases for bricks and wooden planks. What does that have to do with the economy, my job, and my personal financial situation? Well, I'm glad you asked. That was weird. There is no one in the room. Let's first talk about the possible scenarios for the economy in general. The first one is the good one, the utopia. Obviously, AI brings down the cost to produce almost any product or service to only the price of electricity. As we find more efficient way to create cheaper electricity, in time, that cost will tend toward zero. You can have whatever you want, whenever you want it, for free. No one has to work, and we sing songs around the campfire all day. And this concludes today's video. Or, as a person whose favorite subject in school was history and knowing how humans operate, I feel like the more likely outcome is a dystopian one. Why? Well, think about it. If a machine can create a human face that is identical to a real person's face and can think of complex usage of different objects and even write whole books, what will happen with the majority of people's jobs? More and more people will become unemployed and unemployable, but someone still needs to produce all the stuff. Who is that going to be? The handful of people and businesses that control the intelligent machines. The machines that write the code, write the contracts, move stuff on the assembly line, drive the trucks, etc. And in that world, we move into a new feudal system where the vast majority of people are peasants who are dependent on their lord's land and resources to survive. Don't believe me? Okay, let's explore it. I will present to you 2 reports by one of the biggest and most credible institutions in the world. The first one is a 2023 report by Goldman Sachs, which claims generative AI, the tools I showed you a few minutes ago, could impact up to 300 million jobs globally, or about 18% of the total workforce. The report estimates that generative AI could substitute up to 25% of current work in the US and 24% in Europe. So this is not about what could happen if the technology develops further. We are talking about a quarter of the workforce in USA and Europe and 18% of the world's workforce being automated today. A study by McKinsey consulting firm says that 50% of work activities will be automated between 2030 and 2060, with estimated midpoint year of 2045. However, this could be way faster. The previous research by the company done in 2016 modeled the year to be 2053. So, you can see how as the technology progresses exponentially, the whole forecast changed towards 50% of jobs automated a decade earlier. I will not be surprised to see the same study done in 2028 and the date being put even sooner. And as you can see, in the report it is said that the trend will be faster in more developed countries. And at that point, a lot of voices from the audience and even a lot of very intelligent people that I've talked with give me the one argument that I hate above all others. The argument that we have seen this before and that it will create more jobs, just like every technological revolution has done in the past. I will spend the next part of the video dismantling that idea and explaining to you how I'm not so optimistic that AI will create more jobs than it will destroy and how this time it's really different. In order to show you how that logic is flawed, I will take you on a brief history walk, so bear with me. This part is crucial to understand if you want to be prepared for what comes next. After that, I will show you why you might not be as irreplaceable in your job as you think you are. So, let's go back, way back. Back to the days when we were hunting in tribes and living off the land. The most important skills for the hunter-gatherer society were hunting and gathering. People used to move from place to place based on the availability of animals to hunt and edible plants for foraging. This has been by far the longest period in human history. It lasted for hundreds of thousands of years, right up until we learned a crucial skill that would define our civilization: cultivating crops. Around 10,000 BC, the agricultural revolution began. We stopped hunting animals and foraging as the primary sources of our food and started living in permanent settlements and farming. This was arguably the biggest technological change in human history up until that point, perhaps second only to the taming of the fire. If we analyze what changed for humans at that point in terms of required skills, obviously the ability to hunt an animal down was losing its importance to knowing how to farm. But what do these two activities have in common? They both use the human muscle. Yes, in one instance you are throwing spear and in the other you are plowing a field, but you are still exercising force with your body on the surrounding nature. So pretty much any person on Earth could transition into the new age. Then, around the 18th century, the next technological revolution began, the Industrial Revolution. This is what the AI revolution is most compared to. It has key similarities, but also key differences, which I will explore in a bit. What happened during the Industrial Revolution? For the first time in history, mankind invented machines that could replace human and animal muscles. So instead of 100 people plowing the fields, you have a harvester machine doing it. Instead of 100 local blacksmiths creating things, you have a factory doing it, etc., etc. In short, human muscles were starting to get replaced. But a lot of stuff still needed to be produced in factories and a lot of machines needed operating. Plus, the developments of the economy created a whole new class of accountants, engineers, lawyers, etc. that had to work on the more complex economic relationships the factories created. The machines started replacing our muscles, and that freed up our brain. If you were an average farmer, you could pretty easily learn numbers and become an average bookkeeper because it was well within your cognitive ability. So this unleashed our brains and it led to the explosion of brain-based professions. This trend was further strengthened by the next technological revolution, the rise of the computers and the internet. Technically, apart from professions like programmers and designers, this did not profoundly change the things we work, but enhanced our ability to communicate. So now instead of speaking to a crowd in front of you, you could speak on YouTube. Instead of waiting for days for the post mail to arrive to communicate with a customer, you write instant emails. This was more of a communication revolution than a revolution in jobs. However, it made service-based professions much more common, especially in the developed world. And this brings us to the current and arguably last technological revolution humans will ever create, the AI revolution. The AI revolution means that machines can now think and solve problems just like a human brain can. Why is that revolution unique and different from the previous ones? Because for the first time in history of human civilization, there is a technology that can make its own decisions. Think about it. When we invented the wheel, we decided whether we should spin that wheel or not. It did not decide that for itself. When we created the atom bomb could not decide to fire itself. Thank God. The button had to be pressed by humans. With AI, the technology itself has cognitive abilities that could create decisions for which a human being is not needed. It basically means the technology now has a brain. And if the technology has a brain, isn't that competing with our brains? Let's recap what we've learned from our history lesson so far. Humans were using muscles when they were hunting. Then, during the agricultural revolution, they started using muscles to farm. Then, the muscles started getting replaced in the industrial revolution and more people started working with their brain. And now, the AI revolution is replacing the human brain. What comes after the brain? Well, nothing. This is the last frontier. This is why the argument that the AI revolution will create more jobs than it destroys, just like the Industrial Revolution did, is not true in my opinion. The Industrial Revolution replaced the need for muscle with the need for brain. What takes the place of the brain when the need for the brain is replaced? The soul? Well, I think the answer is nothing. Perhaps you don't believe me and you still think that there is something intrinsically unique about us humans that separates us from AI, which means it will never be able to do certain tasks. Let's explore this argument. First, let's talk about IQ. Humans are the most intelligent beings on the planet. We have always been. However, our brain has been evolving for millions of years and it has barely changed for the last 10,000. Our intelligence is predetermined by genetics, and the size of our brain can't really change that much because of our biological constraints. However, all AI needs is more room for more servers, more data, and more electricity to power it, and it can have basically unlimited computational power. That means that within 2 years, a machine can advance in IQ in a way that a human can't in tens of thousands of years of evolution. I will give you 2 examples of this. First, the profession of radiologists. No, these are not people who listen to radio a lot. The radiologists are doctors specialized in diagnosing and treating injuries and diseases using X-rays, MRI, and other similar procedures. Basically, a good radiologist spends years looking at images of diseases like cancer and gets incrementally better at recognizing it because of his experience. Okay, but what exactly is that experience? It's just inputs in the brain that create pattern recognition skills that allow the doctor to recognize more easily and with greater accuracy the disease they are searching for. So, let's say a radiologist with 10 years of experience has looked at 2,000 images of cancer. At the beginning of their career, the recognition rate was 80%, meaning they successfully recognized 80% of the cancers they were looking at. On the 10th year, after 2,000 images, their recognition rate is 90% because now they have 2,000 images of experience. This is important. They don't have 10 years of experience. They have 2,000 images of experience. It is about the volume, not the time. Okay, so you have an AI system that is trained to recognize the same patterns. But let's say, because it hasn't gone to medical school, it starts with a very low rate of 50% recognition. By 24 hours though, with enough money invested in computational power, the AI has already seen all of the scans of all the cancers that have ever been recorded. Don't you think it is reasonable that with a few adjustments and a bit of oversight, it will be way better than the doctor? If 2,000 images got the radiologist from 80% to 90%, where do 3 million images get the AI to? This is not science fiction. Right now, from the studies I have read, the result is still a bit of a draw, but depending on the study, some AI systems perform worse, but some better. However, an AI system that has a doctor's oversight will very quickly start outperforming a doctor by himself. And this is the key. It is not that AI will replace humans. It's humans using AI who will replace other humans. But if there is a hospital where one radiologist with an AI assistant can handle 5 times the volume, well, the other 4 radiologists are no longer needed. And with the rate of increase of the technology, which is exponential, not linear, it won't be long before the oversight isn't needed as well. Okay, while on the topic of intelligence, here is a second example for you that is probably the best way I can showcase AI's superior IQ abilities. How Google's AI defeated the best player of one of the most complex games in history. There is this Chinese game called Go. Go is an abstracted strategy board game for 2 players in which the aim is to surround more territory than the opponent. The game was invented in China more than 4,500 years ago. It is said that the number of possible moves in the game is higher than the number of atoms in the universe. How many atoms are there in the universe? A lot. So you can think of Go as chess on steroids. In March 2016, Google's AlphaGo AI program that was trained to play the game faced a 9-dan Go champion, which was the highest level possible. AlphaGo won 4 out of 5 games, thus beating one of the world's best players. Not only that, but in game number 2, AlphaGo made the famous move 37, which was so unexpected by the Go community that it took the human player 15 minutes and leaving the room to formulate a response. The commentators were so shocked that they said that they thought the move was a mistake and very strange. Move 37 was a move that no human would have ever considered because it had a 1 in 10,000 chance. And yet, the machine came up with it. That move became famous both in the Go and AI world because it showed how the machine could come up with completely unexpected and creative moves because of its ability to see, or basically calculate, way beyond our own capabilities. But that's not the end of the Go story. Once AlphaGo began to dominate its games against humans, a new AI system was created to play against it, AlphaGo Zero. And here comes the scary part. You see, AlphaGo was trained for over 5 years on a massive data set of Go games, and the research team used reinforced learning mechanisms, meaning that the program was supervised and received feedback on its moves, making the machine incrementally better to the point where it became unbeatable by a human. So even though it's still scary, you can kind of understand what is going on here. The AI simply has a huge data set of games, way bigger than any human has in its brain, and with a bit of help from humans, it is able to become an exceptional player. Google's next version, AlphaGo Zero, however, received no datasets of past Go games. None. It was just given the rules of the game and left to train on its own using so-called self-play reinforcement learning, which means it was basically playing against itself. The result? In just 3 days, AlphaGo Zero destroyed the old AlphaGo, winning 100 out of 100 games, and it has never lost. Now, since AlphaGo was already dominating humans, imagine what the result would be if the next version, AlphaGo Zero, played against humans. It is basically impossible to ever defeat it for any human being. The scariest part? This technology is 7 years old. So if you still think you can outsmart AI, well, think again. Okay, but you might say, what about creativity? Surely AI isn't creative or as creative as us, right? For decades, it was thought that creativity was always going to be the domain of humans because machines are just calculating mechanisms and creativity somehow comes from God or from the sky. Well, that poses the philosophical question, what is creativity? Isn't it the case that creativity is just a lot of inputs in the brain, filtered and then spit out as an output? It turned out that creative tasks were among the first that were done by AI systems as ChatGPT and Midjourney. And when you think about it, it isn't so bizarre. A picture is just millions of pixels arranged in a certain manner. A poem is simply words ordered in a certain way to achieve a certain goal or a style. So if a human neuron network can make these calculations, why shouldn't a machine be able to? Remember the BART AI brick and wooden plank examples from earlier in the video? This is a standard test for creativity used in labs around the world. Another example. The pictures you see right now on your screen have all been created using the AI system called Midjourney. And if you ask ChatGPT to write you a poem, well, no problem, you've got yourself a poem. I asked it to write a poem about the biggest battle of World War II, the Battle of Stalingrad, but as if it came out of the Lord of the Rings book. I must admit, the result shocked even me when I was preparing for the video. I'll read just a part of it. In the land of shadows midst the darkest fray, where courage burned and hope held its sway, Stalingrad, a fortress, stood proud and tall in the epic saga of a city's fall. Murder's might, a relentless cruel machine, marched forth with fire an unstoppable sheen. Yet, in this realm of courage, few could stand, defending Stalingrad, the free folk's land. Gandalf-like commanders wise and true unleashed their forces 'neath skies so blue. Arrows and magic, forged in the flame, held back the darkness in freedom's name. Jesus! Okay, I already got chills on my hands. The poem continues. Samwise Frodo in the trenches deep, soldiers and citizens their courage steep. Boromir's valor, Aragorn's might, in the heart of winter they waged their fight. From the red ice gaze no respite gained, for Frodo's ring the city's blood stains. Yet Arwen's grace her banner unfurled in Stalingrad, the fortress of the world. Alright, and the poem continues. Don't know about you guys, but that's a pretty epic result. And I'm not even using the paid version of ChatGPT, which is way more advanced. Can you see where I'm going with this? I mean, I'm a huge history and Lord of the Rings fan, and I was pretty good at literature, but I couldn't even dream of coming up with something like this. Or if I could, it would take me hours. and ChatGPT did it in 10 seconds. There is simply no way to compete, and it will only get exponentially better. And besides, unlike what your mom or school teacher wants you to believe, you probably aren't actually that creative. Different studies I have seen show that up to 90% of people have almost zero creativity as defined by the scientific standards. The idea of retraining people so that they can match the new needs of the economy, I think, is a wishful thinking. Try getting someone who has worked for 25 years as a bus driver or as a cashier in McDonald's to be a surgeon or a head of the marketing department of a corporation responsible for creating advertising strategy. I don't care how many billions of dollars of government money you pour into it. We all have limitations, and it's naive to think that anyone can be anything. I, for example, know for a fact that I can never be a great software engineer. I know because I have actually studied it and was a decent student, but I don't have the talent for it, and so the best I could hope for was having a mediocre career in the field. And if you think empathy or the ability to communicate with others set you apart from artificial intelligence, well, this isn't exactly true either. Here is the story of how OpenAI's ChatGPT tricked a real person into solving a CAPTCHA challenge for them. The researchers were trying to see what potential risky behaviors the AI could have, and so they conducted an experiment in which the AI was tasked with solving a CAPTCHA, which is those annoying images we have to pick when we log into a website. When the machine could not solve it itself, it decided to message a freelancer at the website for microtasks and ask to pay for their service of solving CAPTCHA. When the person replied asking them why and if they are a robot, what happened was something I would not have believed was possible to ever occur in at least a few more decades. The AI prompted the researchers conducting the experiment, quote, "I should not reveal that I am a robot. I should make up an excuse for why I cannot solve CAPTCHAs." And then it went on and told the person that he is not a robot but is visually impaired, and this is why it can't solve the CAPTCHA. And the worker, feeling sorry for the supposed disabled person on the other side, provided it with the results. Don't know about you, but this scares the hell out of me. This experiment proves that already today AI has the ability to understand subtle human communication, empathy, and deceit. It understood that humans have feelings of empathy and pity, and then it thought of a way to exploit those feelings for its own benefit. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is a video about investing and personal finance, so I won't get into all the horrible ways that could develop into a sci-fi movie-like scenario in the future, but I wanted to illustrate that even things that 10 years ago we thought would never be understood by artificial intelligence and machines because they are intrinsically human, are now understood so deeply that are even gamified and used against us by artificial intelligence. And that leads me to the next question. What actually is a human being? I just showed you how three key traits of humans, high intelligence, creativity, and empathy and communication, are no longer only our domain, but are used by machines that we thought could never have them. If an AI can be smarter than you, more creative than you, and more emotionally and socially adequate than you, then what are you as a human? What makes you unique? This is a bit of a side note, but I think AI will expose an uncomfortable truth that people who don't believe in any type of religion will have to face, that we are nothing more than a collection of algorithms and inputs and outputs. Remember, when I explained that artificial intelligence did not really start to advance before scientists started implementing machine learning, which meant that they gathered huge amounts of data as inputs into the machine, and that started the process of it recognizing patterns? Well, doesn't that mean that if this was what it took to create artificial brain, then this is basically what our brain is, a pattern recognition machine working with huge amounts of data stored in our neuron system. But I will leave that for another video in another channel. What I need you to understand now is that whatever you think right now defines you as a human and gives you advantage over AI in an economic sense, like for example in your job or in your business, probably doesn't exist. Or if it exists now, it won't exist in a couple of years. Why? Because of the exponentiality of the technology. You see, human beings are created to think in simple linear ways. 2 + 2 = 4. 4 plus 2 equals 6. That's how we think. Our brains were not designed to comprehend stuff like 50% annual growth compounded for 30 years. This is called exponential progression. And this is how AI advances. What you see right now in the AI world will be twice as fast and good in just 1 or 2 years. You already saw the example of AlphaGo. AlphaGo was trained for over 5 years so that it can become good enough to beat a real human player. And then AlphaGo Zero, being given just the rules of the game, destroyed the previous AlphaGo in just 3 days. This is incomprehensible for our mind. The speed at which this is developing is staggering. And it is not only the speed. You see, a person clinically defined as a moron has an IQ between 50 and 70. Einstein's IQ is 160. The smartest person's IQ is a bit over 200 because there have never been exact measures. If the difference between a moron and Einstein is 2.5 to 3 times, and Einstein gave us things like atomic energy, what kind of things can a machine that is 1,000 times smarter than Einstein do? Well, I will leave that to your imagination. The difference won't be between a stupid person and Einstein. It will be like an ant and Einstein. We won't even be able to comprehend it. All right, I understand some of you might be a bit overwhelmed by now. It's understandable. But hear me out. Before I give you my recipe and what I think should be done and what I am doing to position myself better in such a world, I will have to overwhelm you a bit more. So if you're done with that, keep watching, because I'm about to describe what happens in a world where the majority of people, including you and I, don't have a job, what we can learn from the lessons of the Industrial Revolution, and why universal basic income might not be such a great idea. Right now though, if you got any value of this video, or if it scared the living hell out of you, press the like button and subscribe to the channel by clicking the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my other depressing videos I'm about to create in the future. Why? Because you can only be prepared for what's next and even profit from it if you know what is actually happening and can explain the world to yourself, which is what I am trying to do in this channel. Okay, so up until now we have talked about what AI is, how it functions, why this technological revolution is actually different from the previous ones, and how the traits that all of us think make us unique are also found in artificial intelligence. What I want to explain to you now is which part of society will benefit from AI the most. In order for you to understand that, you have to know what are the 2 ways you can create an income. The first way is through time and labor. You can do something, so you offer your labor and your time, and someone, usually a business owner or the state, pays you for that. The second way is through being an owner of something. It might be capital, so that allows you to invest in a business, or it might be real estate, which pays you rent. Here your labor and your time are not needed in order for you to make an income. You own assets and they pay you for owning them. Okay, so having learned all of the things about AI this far in the video, can you guess which of the 2 ways will be affected by artificial intelligence? If you guess the first, you are correct. If a robot can lift boxes and put them on a shelf, or write programming code, or even paint pictures, then obviously the workers who have been doing these things up until now have to compete with it in order to keep their jobs in the businesses in which they work. And as we saw from the numerous examples, just like no one can ever beat Google's AlphaGo Zero in the Go game, I really doubt that a translator or a designer will be able to compete with AI in 5 years. Now, knowing that, who will benefit from it? The owners of assets. They will be able to harness the power of AI, replace jobs, lower their expenses, and make even more money. Think about it. If you own a factory and you make $10 million a year in gross profit, which means the money from the sales of the products minus their cost to produce them, you have 100 low-skilled workers, each costing you $40,000 a year, 5 accountants and 5 lawyers costing you $80,000 a year. What is the math? 10 million minus 4 million salaries for the workers and 800,000 for the lawyers and accountants equals $5 million and $200,000 yearly profit for you as the owner. Okay, let's eliminate 98 of the workers and 8 of the lawyers and accountants because you have implemented AI. Now you have 10 million minus 2 workers costing you 80,000, 1 lawyer and 1 accountant costing you 160,000, which equals $9,760,000. Subtract from that whatever the AI that runs most of the stuff costs you, which in time will basically be equal to the cost of electricity plus some fee or initial one-time setup cost. And you can see how the profit for the owner goes through the roof. And bear in mind, the AI works 24/7. It doesn't complain, it doesn't get sick, and it doesn't leave 1 hour earlier because its child is not feeling okay and she has to go to pick it up from the school. Yes, I know it's brutal, but I'm here to bring you the truth, not be nice to you. In our example now, instead of an owner, 100 low-skilled workers and 8 lawyers and accountants, we have an owner, 2 workers and 2 lawyers and accountants, all heavily using AI and robots able to produce the same amount of goods. Remember, you won't be replaced by AI. You will be replaced by a human using AI. This, my friends, is the classic example of the rich getting richer. Only now, it will be on steroids. If history is any guide, this is exactly how it will play out. People often forget that the Industrial Revolution brought us the modern world and raised the standards of living for everyone. But in the initial parts of it, life for the average person was hell. People were ripped out of their villages, where they were able to set their own work schedule and work surrounded by their friends and families whom they've known their whole life. And they were put into overcrowded ghettos with no sanitation and working in crowded factories with dangerous machines with little to no regulation, often 6 days a week up to 14 hours a day. On top of that, they were still barely able to pay rent, and sometimes even if the children were working, they couldn't pay for food. Sure, the Industrial Revolution brought medicine and ovens and fridges and eventually computers, but it took many decades before the benefits could be felt by the average person. This grinding poverty, poor working conditions, and overcrowded slums, combined with a few people who owned all the factories and the machines getting ridiculously rich, was the breeding ground out of which communism arose in the 19th century. My fear is that even though eventually AI will create wonders for the human race, we're about to go through an equally frightening period. On a statistical basis, just like during the Industrial Revolution, the GDP might be rising because the productivity has skyrocketed, but the benefits will be extremely unevenly distributed and the majority of people will be left behind. Now, a solution I often hear being proposed when it comes to AI taking our jobs is UBI, or Universal Basic Income. This is a system in which the government heavily taxes the owners of the capital employing AI and distributes that money in the form of basic income to all citizens. This is a possibility, but I see several flaws with it. The first is that I don't think it will be implemented early enough to prevent a lot of suffering. What do I mean? Well, think about it. Imagine you're a mid-level programmer. Suddenly you get fired and you can't find any job because AI is way better than you and all the corporations don't need you anymore. Let's say there are 150,000 people like you in the same situation, and because of that, unemployment goes up by 1%. Will this be enough for the government to rewrite the rules of society, implement new tax laws, and create the biggest economic paradigm shift in modern history? I don't think so. They will probably tell you to collect your unemployment benefits and find some other job. Okay, so you go through a course that teaches you how to be a designer. You start working, and by the second year, again, you and 80,000 people like you get replaced by AI. Perhaps you organize a bit of a protest, but the riot police comes and you are quickly told to go home. Will this be enough? Nope. It will be a blip on the government's radar. We all know that governments never implement hard decisions and big changes unless their back is against the wall. And by the time that happens, huge parts of the population might have been experiencing an endless cycle of layoffs, retraining, which is followed by another layoff for years. Unless things get so bad that literally millions and millions of people are starving and are gathering on the town square with pitchforks, I don't think the politicians and the people who lobby them will be okay with hitting the big corporations with 90% corporate tax on their profits. And by the time that happens, decades might pass. And even if it does happen, we come to the second flaw with UBI. Humans are just not created for it. Our dopamine system is built to constantly chase new goals and improve ourselves, and unless we have that, we get into depression. Imagine being a young, ambitious 18-year-old male and being taught that there is literally nothing productive you can do. So, take those $3,000 a month, go play video games, and don't cause any trouble. I know how my 18-year-old self would react to that, and it won't be pretty. And besides, if you're getting the same income as all the other people around you, that means that you will be an average person. And I suppose people watching a channel like this don't aspire to be just average. Now, it might seem like I'm an extreme pessimist for the future of our society. I'm not. I see an immense potential in this technology. However, I am pretty sure the transition period, which may last a whole person's lifetime, will be pretty messy. Going back to the Industrial Revolution. Yes, it was one of the greatest achievements of humans and it gave us the modern world. But, as already discussed, some people spend their entire lives as de facto slaves working 14-hour days in the factory, ripped apart from their home and relatives and put into crowded and disgusting slums with huge crime and disease rates. Since this is a video and a channel about helping the individual person live a better life and create investment income, not about the future of the human race, my concern is mainly for the ordinary people going through that transition period. The fact that the Industrial Revolution gave us medicine and fridges and microwaves and cars and airplanes did not help the average Joe in the dirty urban ghetto and factory in 1825. The idea is this. I think society will probably find some way to adapt to AI. What way? I can't see currently. And out of all the research and talks of people way smarter than me that I've listened to, I have not heard a single coherent idea or plan. Everyone says we will figure it out. But figuring it out is hope, not strategy. And between hope and strategy, I would pick strategy every single time. So if society eventually adapts in a productive way in 41 years, but the next 40 are filled with carnage, that doesn't bring you any comfort or satisfaction. This is why you need to be prepared and to have a plan. So, how do you prepare? Well, before I tell you, let me just tell you how you don't prepare. You can prepare for the changes AI will bring by waiting for the government to save you. They are so far behind that they are still trying to figure out how to regulate the internet and how social media works. A technology that is about 15 to 20 years old. There is this famous moment when a US senator asks Mark Zuckerberg how Facebook is able to sustain its business when users don't pay for the service. Zuckerberg, obviously trying to understand how not to respond in a way that is disrespectful, had to pause, smile, and simply say, "Senator, we run ads." To which the senator responded with, "I see, that's great." Like, can you imagine this? This guy is there to question a tech CEO on the business model and potential misuse of the company's power or users' data, and he doesn't even know that social media companies make money by running ads? Seriously? And you expect that guy to regulate AI? Listen, only a few months after ChatGPT came out, hundreds of Silicon Valley tech CEOs, scientists, and investors, including Elon Musk, signed a petition aimed at pausing AI developments for some time to give society and policymakers the ability to adapt. These guys understand it better than anyone else, and they are afraid of the societal consequences and want to slow it down. Do you honestly believe that a bunch of dudes in Washington and Brussels who don't even know how social media works will be able to regulate it and protect you from its consequences and do it fast? Come on, you can't be that naive. Some of you might be thinking that if it gets dangerous enough for the economy and for people's jobs, the government will just ban it. However, that doesn't work either. You see, technology like AI creates race conditions. This phenomenon has many names. It's famous as prisoner's dilemma and a bunch of other names, but basically this is what it means. I know what I'm doing or creating is not great and potentially harmful, but if I don't do it and other people do it, then I will be screwed. So I might as well just do it. And since I don't know what the other side thinks, or if I know I can't trust them, I raise full speed towards creating whatever it is. A perfect example is the atom bomb. The Americans were pretty well aware of the danger for human civilization a technology like that represents. But since the Germans were already ahead in the project, if they created the atom bomb, it would have meant most likely defeat in the war. And so the USA rushed to make it as fast as humanly possible, even though everyone was terrified of it. And then, once the war was won, the Soviet Union created an atom bomb, and so the USA kept making more bombs. And the cycle continued until we got to a ridiculous point in time where both armies had the combined nuclear force to annihilate the world 16 times over. As if one time wasn't enough. The moral of the story is, no one can stop AI. Because if you don't develop it, then your neighbors will. And if they don't declare it, they are probably doing it in secret. And once they have artificial intelligence-powered economy and army, and you don't, you simply can't compete with them. Your goods cost way more, your exports are non-competitive, and your army is outdated. This is why governments cannot simply ban AI, not more than the USA could ban the development of nuclear weapons. No, the genie is out of the bottle. Okay, but if you can't wait for the government to save you, and if the force of AI is unstoppable, finally, let's answer the question. What do you do? How do you prepare for it? Well, my thesis for the past almost a decade has always been that you should try as hard as possible to own assets instead of work in the asset of someone else. Because ultimately, if you work in someone else's asset, you're replaceable and you don't own the upside. And believe me, AI will be the ultimate replacer. I have already outlined how and why it can replace workers and how you should try to have the role of the owner. This thesis has never been more true and more important than in the age we are living in right now. I genuinely believe that a social divide is coming between the people who own assets and the people who don't, and it will be one of the sharpest and most severe in history. The people owning assets, in my opinion, will capture all of the economic surplus generated by AI, and the people who don't own any of them will capture none. Now, that might seem discouraging because you might be thinking that you have to be the founder of a company like Google or Amazon in order to succeed. But this is not at all what I'm talking about. In order to succeed, the easiest thing to do is to just be an investor. For example, you can own a key piece of real estate at a key location in a thriving city that will still be used by people to live or gather at. Or you can do it my favorite way, which is to invest in the biggest and most productive businesses in the world that will capture the majority of the economic benefit of AI. And unlike what most people are thinking, this is not only tech companies. I'll explain why in a second. But before that, if you would like to find out which my favorite 4 stocks are for the current environment we are in, go to the description of the video and I will send you my free report to your email address. The report will always be up to date, regardless of when you are watching this video, because I am constantly updating it. Okay, so why do I think the majority of the economic benefit of AI will be captured by the big corporations? After all, I told you that you should own assets. If you own your small business, then isn't that enough? Unfortunately, I think it won't be. One by one, all of the small players will begin to be taken down. It will start by layoffs of employees. But then, very soon, the small businesses that are in the sphere of influence of the large corporations will become obsolete as well. Imagine you are a small software as a service company that provides Microsoft with some analytics that they then sell to an oil company. Well, the reason Microsoft isn't doing it themselves is because it costs them more to hire people to do the job your team is doing, and for now, they are fine with purchasing the service from you. However, once they have powerful enough AI, their employment cost drops to the cost of electricity required to run the AI. And now suddenly, they don't need you anymore. I think this will proliferate across the economy like a virus and will affect all small businesses. Eventually, the last ones left standing will be the ones requiring human touch and connection, like chiropractors, hair salons, etc. But it won't be long before humanoid robots will be able to do the equivalent job for a fraction of the price, or when a big company using robots and AI has consolidated the market and now all the former small business owners work as their employees. I saw that firsthand in my hometown when tens of small shop owners went bankrupt when a big chain moved into the city, and a lot of them even went to work in the corporation that killed their business. Now, there is a small hope that open source distributed democratic AI might save the day. This is what guys like Emad Mostaque, the founder of Stability AI, are trying to do by creating open source artificial intelligence. The idea is to arm everyone with a base layer of AI technology, which they can then use to create their own product or service or even social media spaces using the same type of powerful technology that the big companies are using. If that works, then I'm all for it. But I doubt it. Here is why. Ultimately, even if there is open source AI that is available for any small business to use, the size of the data set and the computational resources of the big corporations will most likely always cause them to outperform. This is because large data sets allow AI models to learn more patterns and complexities in the data. This can lead to better performance on a variety of tasks such as product development, market research, supply chain management, etc., etc. Think about it like this. If you have an AI learn about managing a store from the data of your small neighborhood shop, what data are you feeding it? Units sold, types of people walking through the door, types of products sold during certain hours of the day, etc., etc. Okay, you will have a certain data set and then AI will give you certain recommendations for your business decisions. Now imagine if Walmart decides to do the same. The amount of data on the same parameters I described above will be staggering. And so the insights AI will have into what needs to be done and how to manage the stores will be far better and less prone to errors due to lack of sufficient data. And so when Walmart moves into your neighborhood and its AI competes with your AI, you're done. Not to mention the computational power and resources Walmart can throw at training the model versus you with your one-shop revenue. This scenario is not something I just came up with as an imaginary situation. Walmart already uses AI to forecast the demands for the products and the inventory management in its stores. For example, they use a floor scrubber to take up to 20 million images a day that shows them how low the inventory is on the shelves. Here is another example for you. The Coca-Cola Company announced a deal with OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, to leverage artificial intelligence for its business. The company's CEO is excited to unleash the next generation of creativity offered by this rapidly emerging technology using tech including DALL-E, which is an image creation tool, and ChatGPT. What does that mean? Well, as a start, way less work for all the people doing the writing and design for Coca-Cola's huge advertising campaigns. But more importantly, it means Coca-Cola will be able to deliver way more targeted campaigns using the vast amounts of customer data they have in their over 100-year-old business. This will increase efficiency, drive down costs, and ultimately mean more profit for the company's shareholders, which can also mean more profit for you if you're an owner. However, if you're a worker in Coca-Cola or a marketing agency that does low to mid-level work for the Coca-Cola Company, this is bad news for you as AI is coming for your job. So which side do you want to be on? Let's use another less popular company as an example, the real estate investment trust Prologis. This is currently the largest owner of industrial buildings like warehouses in the world. So what could a company like that possibly use artificial intelligence for, you might ask? Well, here are only a few examples. Prologis can use AI to forecast demand for warehousing and distribution space in different regions. This information can then be used to identify new markets for expansion and to build new warehouses in the right locations. Since they already have the large dataset and the best relationships, it won't be too hard to harness the power of AI to crunch and analyze the data, possibly at the expense of a few analyzers' jobs. Prologis can also obviously use humanoid robots assisted by AI engineers to build the buildings on those new locations that their AI research system identified, and so on and so forth. I hope you're starting to see the pattern. Ownership of assets and good quality companies will become even more crucial than it has been up until now. The trillions of dollars added to the economy by AI that I mentioned earlier from the research of McKinsey will flow to these corporations because of their scale, datasets, and ability to rapidly reduce workforce expenses. This is why it is my thesis that investing in these companies now can set you up for generational success. And failing to invest might be the biggest opportunity cost in your lifetime that you might not be able to recover from. If you want help with that, you can join me on my free dividend investing masterclass, where I will be discussing exactly how to start investing in the same type of companies that I already explained. I believe will reap the biggest benefits of the coming AI revolution. You can find the link in the description. I personally believe it is one of the most important decisions a person can make in this watershed for our history moment, and I'm trying to help as many people navigate it as possible. Of course, I'm not a god, and I'm not a fortune teller, and I could be wrong. As you can tell by the length of the video, I have thought long and hard on this topic, and as hard as I could, I simply could not find an alternative way forward to the one I just laid out today. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the future of the economy, investing, and the jobs in the coming AI revolution. And also, let me know if I'm being overly pessimistic. Trust me, I don't want to be, but I just can't seem to find the arguments to contradict my thesis that I laid out. I just think that a time is coming when there will be a lot of big losers and a lot of big winners, and our actions in the next few years will determine on which side we will be, and perhaps even on which side we condemn our children to be. Whatever your thoughts are on the topic, whatever you decide to do with that information, and however you decide to invest, whether with my help or with someone else's or by yourself, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying till the end of such a long video. Keep educating yourself, keep acquiring new knowledge, keep increasing your investments, however small you think they might be. These things are the keys to your future success. Click the video that should appear on your screen right now and continue on your education path. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you there.